Most people think color grading is a second chance, the final fix, the last hope to make your footage look cinematic. And yeah, sometimes it can be that. But if you treat it as the last step, you've already missed the point. Because the secret to the cinematic look, it doesn't start in post. It doesn't start in DaVinci. And it definitely doesn't start with a LUT. The truth is, it starts long before you press record. And the choices you make, the lights you set, the way your camera sees the world. Color is a mission. It starts in pre-production. And until now, you had very little control over the final image. But then, Dehancer had something to say about it.
If you haven't guessed it yet, today we're going to be discussing one of the all-time favorite plugins, Dehancer. And I'm going to be using it in DaVinci Resolve. Dehancer is a film emulation plugin using the color grading process, and it's available to use on DaVinci Resolve, Final Cut Pro, as well as Adobe Premiere. One of its main purposes is to replicate film stocks by kind of simulating different analog characteristics like halation, bloom, film grain, color profiles, as well as film stocks. It helps digital footage achieve a more cinematic and organic and vintage look. And you might ask, what is different from this and a LUT? Well, a LUT doesn't allow you to make these minute and granular adjustments that a Dehancer allows you to make. Let's start by taking a look at a test clip that I have here. You've probably seen this on my page a few times, but when you first open up Dehancer, you'll start by seeing that all of these may be open. I have a few of them open because I've played with it a little bit, but I start off by coming down here and disabling all my tools just to start from scratch. And another pro tip is to hold Option and click on the tabs, and all of the tabs that are open will collapse. Let's start off with the input tab. So the input tab is what you use to convert your footage to Rec 709 if it's not done already. You can also choose the working space that you're using, whether that's ACES, DaVinci Wide Gamut / Intermediate, or Cineon Film Log, just to let Dehancer know what working space you're working in so that all of these adjustments are made in the right color space. And one of my favorite parts of this input tab is that it allows you to choose the camera that you shot on. So I shot this on a Sony a7S III, and I shot it in S-Log3 S Gamut 3.cine, and it basically does all the conversion for you. Then you'll come down here to the input corrections. These are essentially just technical adjustments before you start to color grade. This is your color correction process. Personally, I prefer to do these adjustments within DaVinci. It allows me to make a lot more minute adjustments when it comes to technical adjustments. Of course, we all know what exposure adjustment does. This makes your image lighter or darker in terms of an overall exposure standpoint. Of course, temperature is making it cooler or warmer depending on what you're looking for in a look. And tint is making it greener or more magenta. You're not really going to need to use the defringe and defringe radius. So let's move on to the film tab. This film tab is essentially the meat of what you're purchasing when you buy Dehancer. It has over 60 real scan film stocks. So these aren't just like overlays on your footage. These are actually baked into your footage once you choose one, and it messes with the characteristics of your footage to actually give it the characteristics like you actually shot on the film stock, which is pretty cool. Some of my favorites have got to be Kodak Vision 3, which is the standard. Usually most films were shot on Kodak Vision 3. Of course, we've talked about what each of the numbers and letters mean in previous videos. so I'm not going to discuss that here, but they have the 4 options as far as Kodak Vision 3. Another one of my favorites is Kodak Ektachrome, and this is what Euphoria was shot on. And this push and pull adjustment varies depending on what the film stock you choose. Some of them affect exposure, but others affect just different variations depending on what film stock you shoot on and what this EV actually would affect on that film stock if you were actually using it. The next adjustment that I would make would have to be the film print. The film would have to be the film print emulation. Reason being is because this is where you get into solidifying your look. A lot of you, if you use DaVinci Resolve, are probably familiar with Kodak 2383. The film print is essentially like adding a LUT to your image. It kind of simulates the photochemical print stocks that were added at the end of the process of printing the film. It's like adding a LUT, but in the chemical stage, like I said. So we're gonna add that. Target white is essentially choosing the white balance that you want this LUT to give off. You're balancing your whites, and then exposure, of course, is your EV. How much where do you want your exposure to sit within this plugin? And then tonal contrast, of course, is how much contrast you want in this image. And then color density is how dense you want your colors to be. And then saturation, of course, is saturation. This analogous range limiter, it basically flattens the curve out a lot more so that you have more room to work with in terms of exposure. It's not as contrasty. I'm going to probably toggle it on, and then I'm going to set my exposure a little higher. So let's see. Yep, toggle it on, set my exposure a little higher, set my whites probably a little bit more on the orange side, and then a tonal contrast, I'm gonna leave it the same, and then densify those colors. After film print, we're gonna come back up to film compression. All film compression does is it helps you to recover some of your highlight roll off if it's not clipped. It mimics higher dynamic range, and it does not restore your highlights if they are blown. The impact slider determines how much compression you add to your midtones. So the higher you go with this slider, the more your highlights are pushed toward the midtone range. So the white point selection is essentially at what highlight point you want to start affecting and compressing. All the tonal ranges is essentially how wide or how narrow you want that selection to be. All the color density slider does is selects how much color you want to show, how dense you want your colors to show in the highlights. Moving on to Film Developer. All Film Developer does is essentially allow you to make adjustments to the film profile and essentially make your own. After you start with one of the film profile selections, create your own look. So let's enable this right here. You can boost the contrast a lot more. Then you can increase the gamma correction, or you can mess with the color separation or color boost. All the color separation is this determines how much the color boost is affected. So when this slide is at 0, you see a lot more separation in your colors versus when it's at 100. And then you have your color boost tab that kind of bounces off of that one to intensify your colors. The difference between Film Developer and your input corrections is that Film Developer is a lot more broad adjustments, whereas your input corrections are a lot more minute in detail. Film Developer is a lot more the grading process, whereas this is a lot more the color correction process. Let's move on to Expand. All Expand is it allows you to pull and push your black points and your white points in the image. Let's mess with it a little bit. So I want my blacks to sit about right there, and my whites to sit about right there. Let's move on to Color Head. All Color Head is an optical style color shifting tool that essentially allows you to shift your colors. So if you shift it over here, you're gonna have a yellow tint on your image. If you shift it over here, you're gonna have blue tint. It essentially shifts the overall color and puts like a tint on your image, and you're able to affect at which part of your image are you making these shifts. Then moving on to film grain, we're gonna enable that, and I'm gonna leave it at 30. I'm gonna put it at 16 millimeter ISO 500, and we're going to keep that amount the same. Unlike DaVinci's film grain, this film grain is actually infused into your image, and it's not just overlaid, so you can set it based on the presets, or you can come up here to where it says custom, and it allows you to affect the size of the grain, or the amount, or even the film resolution, so what resolution you're in, or how much is showing up in the shadows, the midtones, the highlights, the chroma levels, and allows you to choose which film type, positive and negative, that you have, and analog or noise, which is pretty cool. And so it's based off of the last one you choose, and then when you come to custom, you're able to make adjustments. So I chose 16 millimeter 500T. This is a strength slider of how much you actually have in your image. Moving on to halation. This is a similar setting to film grain. Halation is that reddish glow that you have around the bright edges. It's subtle and often affects like skin tones, and you'll see it a lot lined up in your highlight areas. If you were to zoom in right there, you'll see it affect your highlight areas a lot more. Put it at custom mode. For some reason, it's affecting my actual grain instead of, there it is. So let's see here, and it allows you to do a mask mode so you can see where it's actually affecting it at. So let's do the no rim jet Super 16 to keep with that 16 millimeter. And you can kind of see it here where the halation is affecting. Usually coupled with halation, you have bloom. All bloom is a light bleed, and the glow effect is essentially the glow effect. So you see it's affecting and helping sell that look of the halation. Moving on to film damage. Film damage is essentially adding like the hairs and just little scratches that you used to see on film back in the day when it was put in there by people, and a lot of mistakes happen, just mess ups, just dehancing your image. And then you have film breathe. All film breathe is an like sometimes on film they would have accidental changes in exposure or contrast or even color, and that's essentially all film breathe is. And gate weave, and all gate weave is like the actual mechanical pulling of the film through the machine. All overscan does when you cut it on is it allows you to see the perforations, because when they scan film, they used to have to crop it in, which is why you had like a 1.37 or 1.33 to 1 aspect ratio, and it allows you to play with your aspect ratios. I'm gonna put it at 1.37 super 35. I'm gonna turn that off. Gate shape is essentially just what the outside looks like. You can make it rounded. You can turn it off so you have your entire thing. It's completely up to you. And then you can make it negative or positive, or you can just turn those completely off. And then you can make it horizontal, and you'll start to see it kind of looks like film is actually going through. You can mess with the exposure levels of it, the scale of it, how far it zooms in, and you can move the actual image, and you can defocus the gate so that it's not as hard of a cutoff here. Of course, vignette is pretty self-explanatory. When you turn it on, exposure kind of determines how dark the outer edges are. Of course, it's pretty self-explanatory. And then the size determines how wide or narrow you want that vignette to be, and then feather determines how sharp you want those edges to be, which you don't want them to be sharp and then the aspect ratio determines what the shape of that circle is going to be. And then moving on to monitor, you can use false color to see what your exposure looks like to help you going through this, or you can then you have your output, which lessens the effect of the total plugin. And then of course we have LUT generator. This allows you to export whatever look you've created into a monitor, or and then pull it into a monitor so that you can go on set and have it as a look. Basically pull them like power grades and export them into your monitor as long as you have an SD card. But yeah, that's pretty much Dehancer on its own. I tend to not use it as my primary tool for color correction. I prefer to make more technical corrections in DaVinci Resolve and use Dehancer to basically grade my footage to give it that film look. It's better used to like enhance or dehance your image, not to fix it or make technical corrections. Moving on to another image that I shot here. Let's say that we made all of our corrections here, but we want to give it a little bit more oomph. So of course, if you haven't seen my video on how to color grade and how to get this Noah tree set up, I strongly encourage you to go and check it out. But we're going to go through a different workflow using Dehancer. The cool thing about Dehancer is that we don't need to adjust grain, halation, and glow within the image, and don't even really need to affect saturation. We can start from here, and of course we are in a DaVinci wide gamut, DaVinci intermediate workflow, and we don't have to make any of these technical adjustments. I like where the image is sitting at so far. It is a little green, so let's adjust that in our HDR wheel. Yep, there we go. And then let's close that. After we set our source to DaVinci wide gamut, DaVinci intermediate, we come over here to our film. Let's choose Kodak Ektachrome once again. Let's enable that. And then let's come over here to film and let's add a contrast boost. I gotta always remember to enable these. And let's correct our gamma and then add a little color boost, just a little bit, to give it a little taste there. And then on film compression, let's bring that highlight back. That this little lamp that you're seeing here. Let's bring that, let's add some compression to that thing there. This is before, this is after. Brought it back just a little bit to make it look like I have a lot more dynamic range than I actually did. And then let's enable this to increase our black point and bring our highlights up just a tad bit. And then moving on to your film print, let's add Kodak 2383. Let's make our target white a little more. And then on color head, I'm going to enable it, add more of a yellowish tone to it, to the overall image. And then now let's add some film grain. Let's give this thing a look. And I'm going to leave it at 35 mil. Nope. I'm going to go to 16 mil. It's a bit much, so I'm gonna go to 35, 250. And I'm going to enable that halation. And then I'm going to enable my bloom. It's crazy, all I'm doing is enabling them and it's giving me the look that I want. I don't really have to make many adjustments to it. And then I'm gonna do enable that overscan and put this at 1.3 to 1. I'm not going to use the vignette because I already have one right here. And then yeah, that's pretty much how I create the look. This is before and this is after. That is a world of difference. And let's turn off overscan here to just really just see what this Dehancer plugin has done, and it's an amazing color grading tool. Now some pros and some cons of Dehancer. It's an incredible plugin, but one huge thing that would keep a lot of people from taking the step to using it has got to be the high cost to entry. It has a higher cost to entry than it is to get DaVinci Resolve itself for lifetime. It's about $4.99. As I was looking at it a couple weeks ago, it's about $499 to get the plugin for life. But just so you know, there are other plans that you can subscribe to so that you can get it at a cheaper rate or try it out. They have a 1-month subscription for $59, or 3-month subscription for $149, or a 1-year subscription for $299, or you can get the lifetime for $549 at the time of this video. You can buy the film grain or the bloom or the halation or the breathing damage or the monitor option as a separate purchase, or you can buy them all under the Dehancer Pro. Some things I would like to see better within using this plugin would be when you first open up the plugin for the tabs to start off closed. If this is a setting that I can change, please let me know in the comments, but so far I have not been able to change it. Every time I've closed out and opened up DaVinci, it has started with the tabs all open. Also, if it could start off with all of the tools disabled, that would be incredible as well. These two things are just more so I can have a more organized workflow and know where and have a better starting point when using Dehancer. One of my final gripes about Dehancer is finally the ability to scroll through the different film stock options. It's really irritating to have to constantly click through and re-click on the thing just so I can check between the different options. I would love if there was a scroll option so that I'm able to kind of compare the different film stock options in real time instead of having to click one, look at it, and then go back through and click it again. That's kind of annoying. Again, these are just workflow things that would make my workflow a lot more organized and a lot faster, so that I'm not looking through all 60 plus of these one by one and it taking a lot longer. It will make things a lot less daunting when you open it up. As a cinematographer who hasn't really looked into shooting on film just yet, but having so many options to choose from within this plugin in ways was a lot. Kind of like when I started using DaVinci Resolve. It was really overwhelming at first, but when I got used to it and got in there and just started working with it, it became a tool that made my workflow a lot better and my product a lot better too. One of the pros that I look towards when talking about Dehancer is, of course, it's incredibly accurate film emulations. They look exactly like what these real film stocks. It's insane because I get the capability of using a digital camera, but I get to have all of the perks of using an actual film stock, which is the look of it, the character of it. And I don't have to waste a ton of money on film strip or purchasing all these different things just so I can shoot on film and get that characteristic. I can shoot with the camera that I have, which is a Sony a7S III, and get this look that a Super 16 camera might have, or that the Kodak Ektachrome film stock may have. And it's a lot more adjustable. Speaking of adjustability, unlike DaVinci's Film Look Creator, Dehancer has a lot deeper customization to not only emulate film looks, but to build your own style and create new looks that you otherwise wouldn't be able to without this plugin. The grain, the halation, and bloom tools are incredible with the ability to adjust where each is affected. These three things are incredible because they give you not only the ability to just overlay these things on your image. Again, they are actually implemented into your footage to the point where you're able to adjust how much these things are affecting your highlights, your midtones, and your shadows. Dehancer overall just helps bring soul back to your image. It helps bring character back to your image. And it helps take the sharpness away and improve the feeling that over time we've lost in images. Because of everything being so perfect and being so sharp and clinical. So if you're a cinematographer like me, chasing the cinematic look, Dehancer will bring you one step closer to how the movies and shows actually feel. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot. Dehancer has also just launched their new standalone app. So now you can go and get all of this from the comfort of your phone. You don't have to load your footage that you record on your phone onto your NLE like DaVinci or Premiere or Final Cut just to get the magic that Dehancer provides. You can do it from the comfort of your phone, so you can take it directly from your phone over to social media and have that film look right from the comfort of your phone. Don't overthink it. Just shoot your image how it's supposed to be shot based on what I've told you in previous videos. Correct your image and let Dehancer bring the character and feeling back. And just create different. Peace.